There are a lot of jokes and trolls on the internet right now about Michigan and the way that they lost yesterday. I don't know that all of them are fair, but I will say they're funny at least. I get it. People like to make the Stallions joke because they're losing now or because they lost yesterday and he's not there. And so, the team just not as good when you don't know the other players. I don't know how much that's the case, although that is funny. I'll give it to you. Even Michigan fans will say, yeah, you got us, right? And you don't want to admit that, Michigan fans. I get it. But I don't know that that's the true story here. I don't know that that's truly what is going on. I just think that Texas is absolutely for real. I think that Texas is absolutely legit. I think they're the real deal. And I think that they are going to be a problem for the rest of college football. Quinn Ewers absolutely dropping dimes all over the place. I don't know that that shocks anybody. I think people knew he was going to be really good. I think people knew what kind of talent he had. But to go up there in the big house and do it against Michigan's defense, to do it against that Michigan secondary, to do it in front of that crowd, to do it in that environment on the road when we had questions about what Texas would really be, if they could really sustain, if they were that kind of team, man, that's really, really impressive. That is impressive to see. And he looks like he took a step forward towards a lot of things. Heisman, maybe. Playoffs, maybe. National championship, I don't know. That's to be determined. I won't crown anybody as a national champion just yet. But Quinn Ewers looked for real. More impressive than that, though, their trenches are absolutely legit. Their trenches are special. Their trenches are to go up against Michigan, which I know Michigan lost a lot of guys to the NFL. I know you're not going to. I'm not ignorant to that fact, but to go up against Michigan and win the trench battle on the road in the big house, they did whatever they wanted. They did absolutely whatever they wanted in that game. The score was not indicative of how not close the game was. Michigan got bullied. Think about that. Listen to those words. I can't believe I'm saying that. Michigan got bullied, and they weren't close to being competitive with Texas. And as good as Quinn Ewers was, as good as their wide receivers were, I know that running back, again, they've got the worst injury luck at running back, but it might even matter with how deep they are and how good they are. Their trenches are insanely good. And if you want to be the best, right? And I don't necessarily think that Michigan's the best. Obviously, I think they've taken a step back. I think there's a lot going on there. And you lost so many guys to the NFL. We're seeing that kind of all over, right? It's not just Michigan. Teams that lose a lot to the NFL, they struggle. Look at my background. But Texas bullying Michigan is something I never thought that I would end up saying about this game. I thought they might out-finesse them. I thought they might out-skill them. I thought that they might eventually ground and pound, eventually hit some guys over the top. And they just bullied them. They were just better up front. And that's crazy. And that is how you beat the very best of the best. And here's the thing for Texas. They got to stay focused. They got to keep locked in because they did this last year and not this impressive. And I do think that Alabama team was not the same at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, although Alabama looked terrible last night too. They got to stay focused because last year they went into Big 12 play and they didn't play their best and they were able to escape with some wins. They were able to get out of some games, get out of some situations with some wins. And I don't think they can do that in the SEC. I don't think they can do that with what their schedule is like this year. The SEC did them no favors in year one in that conference, which honestly, they didn't do a lot of teams any favors. That's a very tough schedule. That's a very tough conference. Obviously, you know about Georgia coming to town. You know about playing Oklahoma in the Red River. You know about other games that they have on their schedule. A&M at the end of the year, who has looked good so far this year. Kind of a little bit in question after Notre Dame lost yesterday, but I digress. You got to stay focused. And if they do, and you're probably even allowed to slip up here, you could lose to Georgia if they're just the better team. Who knows? 10-2 probably gets it done for them. Even if one's against a mediocre team and one's against a good team, like they'll probably still get it at 10-2. However, if they stay focused, they'll get a bye. They'll make the SEC, and they'll have a chance to compete for the SEC championship, in which they'll get a bye, or at the very least, Texas looks like they're a home playoff team. I don't know if I'm ready to crown them as the number one team in the country just yet. But you're basically saying is Texas' win on the road at Michigan more impressive than Georgia's neutral site win in the Dome against Clemson. I don't know which one's more impressive. Texas fans, if you have any Georgia fans, Clemson fans, Michigan fans, you tell me what's more impressive. I tend to think that the way that Georgia beat Clemson is slightly more impressive. What's so funny is the games were mirrors of each other. One team dominating the first half, one team dominating the second half. Not that Texas didn't dominate in the second half too, but it felt like Texas the game was over by halftime. It didn't feel like Michigan had much of a shot at halftime. And so if they're not the number one team in the country, they might be number two. And they should be voted up to number two. I know that Ohio State's been fine. Jeremiah Smith looks like the absolute truth. But I don't – you need to play somebody for me to think you're up there. And Ohio State's schedule looks like it's weaker now, with Oregon struggling, with Michigan not looking as good or as competitive. Maybe Nebraska looks a little bit tougher there on that Ohio State schedule. But, yeah, I'm thinking that Texas is the number one or two team in the country. And honestly, I'm not a big fan of you're number one until somebody knocks you off, thinking about Georgia winning this, that, and the other. But I think I might have Texas number one. Right. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you're watching this. If you're a Texas fan, if you're not a Texas fan, that is kind of what I want to hear, though. If you're a Texas fan, I want to hear that you're a Texas fan. If you tell me you're number one. If you're not a Texas fan, I'd love to hear that too. And you tell me who you think the number one team in the country should be. Listen, Texas fans, we're going to talk about you guys a ton this year. College Football Addiction. We even got your colors on the logo. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Just talking all things national college football. And you guys are going to be a team that we talk about a ton. I'm going to get some Texas folks on in the upcoming weeks. You guys got some more big games coming up. I appreciate all of you for tuning in, checking us out. We have a lot of fun with this. We will talk to you soon. But the Texas Longhorns are for real. I'm not a Texas fan, so I can say it, but it seems like they're back. Thank you guys for tuning in to College Football Addiction.